Gundam.tk presents High Grade Genoace. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2 R's 2 B's from YouTube and Gundam.tk, and as the Gaffron spins into view as the UE's grunt suit from the new anime Gundam Age, don't forget the Genoace, which is the Earth Federation counterpart. All the plates are empty, which means the parts are put together, so let's check it out before turning it into an MS. This is pretty normal for me. This kit is completely unpainted, except it's lined with a black and gray lining marker, and I did use the Real Touch gray and pink, which was particularly useful for getting rid of the discolorations when you cut off the parts. Even though the chest should be together, as should the arm, this gives you an idea of the basic body parts. The extras you get include an extra left manipulator, a beam saber, which is interchangeable with the beam stick there, the beam spray gun, and a simple looking shield. And you do get an extra beam in case you have an extra saber kicking around somewhere. SB6. Starting with the feet, they're pretty solid, they're not going to move around. You've got a big pink piece with a white piece polycap inside, but you've got a good ankle mechanism there, which should work a lot better than the Gaffron. Edging there, and you've actually got grooves if you want to put some more in terms of adding detail. The shins are made up of 2 side parts, and then you put a white part on the front and an extra little gray part on the back, which I'm not sure if the AG has. Again, lots of opportunities if you want to get in there with the lining, but I tend not to line between parts. Good little tick marks here, and if you wanted to add some color, you could, but otherwise, very plain. But I kept this apart just to show you the hip here, which is sort of interesting. This part can rotate around freely, as this polycap can go up and down. But when you're bending or building it, you're going to put this knee part together, and you'll notice that it sticks in, comes down, and goes down there into the shins. It's going to have a bend like that, and this part is going to bend as well. But when you put it together, you may wonder how these hip thighs look so big, and it's because of this big white piece that just sits over the whole mechanism. So a unique build. I wonder if that's going to have any impact on it standing up. When it's all together, you're going to get a bend like this, and then like this. So you're going to get an interesting effect. You're certainly getting near a 180 there, at least a 135, but if you notice just how deep cut this is, when you seal it up, the leg goes straight up and down, looks normal until you open it. So I wonder if that's going to be strange in some poses. But down to the ankle, you are able to rotate it around like this and bend it, so hopefully you won't have any problems getting the legs where you want them. A simple look to the waist, but that's good because it doesn't involve any seals to get that point across. A big white piece there at the bottom, you plug it into 2 pink ones up here, and then you're actually going to put, this part is the same as these other ones, you just put this white part on top. So clever use of a single piece to make it look like you've got 3 separate pieces there. Well done, Bandai. Over on the side, for the side armor, it's just going to go up and down. It won't rotate at all. And on the back, you have a nice gray piece just stuck on there for no particular reason. There's a connector there for the action base too, which doesn't have anything to keep it covered when not in use. The top of the chest is simple yet effective. You've just got a polycap there holding this whole thing. This is just a big white piece that goes on. Good lining opportunities there, sort of makes it look like a hatch. And these polycaps, if you plug in the shoulders, you're actually able to bend them out, so you should be able to get the arms to come forward a little bit there, which is good to see. A gray part underneath, which you cover it up with a pink one, a little bit of gray shows through, which would look good because when you plug in this part, this was the most interesting part for me, you're going to have this part of the gray attached to this one, and it's on a ball joint, which means you could bring it forward a little bit, but that's going to be problematic if you try to do too much. But you do get a very good rotation there, and because you've got a ball joint down there, when you plug this whole assembly in, you're going to have what looks like a very skinny bottom part to the torso, but it should have some good mobility, especially if you wanted to have him lean all the way over and stretch. The Age 1 normal has really sleek shoulders, and these ones stand in marked contrast to that. But in terms of color, I'm happy that they added these nice gray parts up here. These 2 parts are the same, but the one down here is a little bit unique just in the way you put it in. But you are going to have 2 gray seals on either side, which is going to provide just that little bit of extra color. The gray part down here just wraps around a polycap, but in terms of the arm mobility, it's going to rotate there, and the bend at the elbow is only going to give you just over 90. But that's somewhat made up for by the fact that you do have a little bit of a bend here. It's not like the 00 where it's going to give you a double bend, it can only go in one direction. Doesn't take away from the overall design, sort of adds a little bit of a mechanical feel, but if you didn't add any lining, this would look awfully plain. The weapons are pretty much unremarkable, which served to set up the Dodds rifle as being pretty awesome early on in the series. Basically put 2 gray pieces together and put this end part on, which is on a different plate, and a little bit of a green sticker down there, so you do have a hole to make it look like a barrel. but nothing fancy, but hopefully you're going to get a solid grip at least when you put it in the manipulator, but not something that you'd want to be swapping into the H1's hands if you're trying to make it look cool. The shield looks simple, but at least it doesn't have any ugly parts that are forgotten about underneath that are going to be on display, because you do put a part in there. Lining opportunities again. I just went along the edges there. Good deep channels there. Nothing fancy though about this in any way, shape, or form. The only gimmick it's going to have is the fact that you can take this heat stick or the handle, and if you put it in the right way, let me just check which way that is. It'll tell you in the manual, but you've got to get that little part of the triangle going down. You can plug it in here, and then it's going to stay, so he's got a heat stick ready to stab him in the forearm at the first sign of trouble. The only problem being that if you push this down too far, well, it's just going to fall out the bottom. So I don't know why they tell you to put it in the right way, but it's still cool that they have the beam stick in the shield so that it's ready to be deployed and it doesn't have to appear from a magical place, like, let's say, a certain trailer from a certain movie franchise, and previously cartoon. The shield plugs in very solidly to the back of the forearm, which means when you do that, you're only going to be able to bend it forward. But it's good that they gave you the left hand as the interesting one in terms of the manipulator, so you can have the beam spray gun doing its thing, and having this one in an epic pose, or as epic as this kind of grunt suit can do. To the heat stick itself, which I think is remarkable, if only because it's the biggest waste of a color in all of the Gundams I think I've ever built. You've got gray with this, and they do give you two different color grays, but it's light gray. But the fact that they added a whole nother color to add 2 centimeters there of plastic just comes across as being a little bit ridiculous. However, it is good to have the differentiation, because if it was all gray, I'd be complaining about that. But really, if you're going to do this, why not add a few more extra colors and have some variations throughout the whole kit instead of just in the weapons? If you want to pop this part out, not too difficult, and then pop in the beam saber, you're going to have a much more traditional Gym and Gundam weapon ready to actually try to have a chance against the Gafran. The best part of the Genoace, though, I think is right here in the fact that you've got such a unique looking head. It's certainly one of the biggest visors in all of Gundam history, I think. When you put it together, you're only going to have 2 pink parts and a white part, and that white part is going to be covered up. I don't know if you can make it out, but a gray seal on the inside. I decided to go with the big gray seal, and it has a little bit of green in the middle, which you're not going to see. Would have been nice if they added some sort of light piping or something like that, but because it's such simple construction. But basically, from any angle, it's going to look good. But I have to say that you're not going to see the insides 9 times out of 10 unless you've got it really, really up close, similar to what I'm doing here with a macro setting. I added a little bit of black lining there. You can put a camera lens on the back, and on the front, it's interesting the way that it's cut there. You have more opportunities to put lining along those edges, but I decided to keep it simple because all the focus is going to be on the front, as it should be. That'll wrap up my look at the parts, and I have to say that I was a little worried that building a Genoace would be too similar to the Gundam itself to make the build itself enjoyable. But it is different enough, especially when you're putting the legs together with their unique knees and the arms, the shoulders, the waist. Everything about this is completely different, so it's not like building the RX-78-2 and its gym counterpart. So in terms of the build, it was fun. The colors, there's more variation when you put it together than I would have thought at the beginning. The lining certainly adds something. Little disappointments like the fact that you're just getting a useless color that you're not going to see 9 times out of 10. But overall, the parts look good, the shoulders are interesting, but in the end, parts don't matter. It's all about the MS, so stay tuned for the next one where I put it together. Let me know what you think with a comment down below of the MS and the video itself. Always great to hear from you, and thanks for watching. See you with lots more to come.